Hello and welcome to Rolling with Two. I'm Will, and with me as always is the one who I hope doesn't have a shellfish allergy.
Sarah.
And today we're doing a two-player perspective and accessibility for Shelfie Stacker. Now, if you want to see our opinions on the game, check out our other video called Rolling with Reviews, Shelfie Stacker. Sarah, tell us a bit about this game.
All right. In Shelfie Stacker, players compete to accumulate the most illustrious board game collection. Players will play cards to manipulate the dice that represent board games. After drafting dice, players place the dice on their shelves according to color and value rules. Whoever has the most valuable Shelfie after 7 rounds wins. All right, Will, so how does the game change for 2 players?
So there is no bot. You just buy from Nanaman store. Otherwise, the changes are the number of dice used in the game changes for each player count, as well as the number of boxes. Those are the platforms that you'll put dice on to draft from. That's going to be based on player count. So it's always the number of players plus 1.
Yes.
So 3 in a 2-player game and 4 in a 3, so on.
Yes.
Those are the only changes.
Right. So issues... Unfortunately, scoring is just not very dynamic in a 2-player experience. Basically, if you get dice on your shelf of shame, you're probably going to lose.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to the next issue we have is 2 players have the fewest options when it comes to drafting.
Right.
Because that's the case, there's usually one set that's just better than the rest.
Unfortunately.
And
only one player can get it.
And only one player can get it, and that player gets put ahead pretty easily when that's the case.
Yeah, because then the other player's working with subpar dice. And yes, there are ways to manipulate things, but not that greatly.
Yeah. Part of the problem comes from the fact that having each column be a color and each one has to be at least higher than the one number previous going up. It's a very limited amount of criteria.
Yeah, and choices you can make.
So it in itself is not very robust.
Right. The good news is I think that's everything that we had an issue with.
Yes.
So what it does well is the way you use the set of cards that are manipulation as well as your turn order, you can set it up in many different ways. One of them is that everybody at the table uses the same set of cards. So in that mode with 2 players, it's really easy to card count and be much more strategic in choosing your cards each round when you know what the other player has played.
Yeah. Now the nice thing is they do give you optional setups. Like one is, here's all 16 possible cards. Each player will choose 8.
Right.
Or they'll just randomly get 8.
True.
So you don't necessarily know what each player has in those particular setups.
Yeah.
So if you want a strategic game or you want a little bit more unpredictable game, you have both those options in a 2-player game.
It just comes to the strategic one. It's the 2-player is the best player count. Higher player counts, it's going to be really difficult for you to keep track of what everybody else has played.
Right.
Okay. Moving on to accessibility. So the dice are color coded. We weren't really sure if these colors are different, the shades and stuff from other dice we've seen. So we showed them to some friends, and one of them said that they might have an issue with the green and orange. So you're really just going to have to check your colorblind accessibility challenges. Pictures may not always be the best since they're backlit on a screen, but hopefully you might be able to see them in person before buying the game to find out whether it is actually a barrier.
Right.
There is a deluxe deliveries expansion. There's one aspect in that is kept secret. I mean, your secret. You have a personal goal. You can play with it. You can choose not to play with it. But basically, it's a tile that has 4 points on one side, and the other side shows the 4 dice colors and numbers that you need. But of course, it's just the color, it's not written what color.
Yeah, and they're not set up in like this one's always in this best, this one's always in this place.
Yeah, they randomize the colors, so even if Yeah, they would have been best to keep like green in the upper left-hand corner and blue in the upper right-hand corner. That way you could just explain it once.
Yeah,
but they randomized
like,
it.
unfortunately for me, that meant that we couldn't really play with that module since that had to be secret.
Yes, exactly.
And I do have a problem with the colors.
Yeah. There are some minor cognitive challenges with some of the icons. They're not the most intuitive. The good news is everything is explained in the rule book. However, there's one card that just doesn't make sense, and it's card 13. Do you want to?
Yeah. So the higher up a card gets, the later it will act when it comes to drafting. So that also means the higher number is usually a more powerful ability.
Right.
But the 13 ability didn't seem to put you ahead in any way.
No.
And kind of just made your board messy.
Yeah, because you can literally put a die on top of another die, but it doesn't count for scoring in any way that we could figure out. So there was no benefit for it to be on your board other than being messy and easily knocked over. So it might as well have just taken it out of the game, because there's another card that does take a die out of your play space and keeps it on that card.
And I think it's a fairly low number. Because
and that's, yeah.
I don't think they thought of it as a very powerful ability.
But it is. It can save you.
Yeah, so what is it? Is it a really powerful ability at 13, or is it a really, not so powerful ability? I think it's maybe 3. I don't remember.
I don't remember exactly either.
But it's not very high, so it puts you in the... It was a baffling card.
The good news is there are 16 cards to choose from to play with. So if you don't like 13 like us, just take it out of the running. So now you have 15 cards to figure out how you want to play the game with. Mm-hmm. Now there is colored text on the cards. It's mostly just irritating. I didn't find any of it too difficult to read, but like I've found with a lot of their games, they put the word for a color in that color. Or what? I don't think that was always the problem, but there were several things.
They were using like color as a way to highlight.
Right. So if they were like
your main shelf.
Yeah, your main shelf. But it'd be like in yellow. And I'm like, that it was a dark enough yellow that it wasn't my normal complaint with, oh my God, yellow on white. It's a terrible combination because it's not a high contrast. So people with poor vision are going to have trouble reading it. But it's like a darker yellow with an outline. So it's okay, but not great. Mm-hmm. They should have just left it in black text. The other thing is your hand of cards are meant to be kept secret. I think with you, Will, I read your cards to start with and you kind of kept them in order.
Yeah. And then I had you look at them again to make sure I remembered what I had.
Right, and just to confirm that you actually picked the right card.
Yeah.
Because as you play them, you're getting rid of them out of your hand.
But you were too busy doing your own thing that you couldn't really be bothered to remember what I had.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, that's everything there. So what it does right. Oh, the nice dual layer boards. I mean, I know in this kind of game, it was not really thought of probably as an accessibility feature, but it really is. It's more of it keeps the dice in place.
Yes, it's always nice to have, especially since you're sequencing dice.
Yes.
Have something that just keeps everything in order.
Yep.
Is
in
fantastic.
Place. Yep. Their Shelfie scoring guide is just brilliant. If you remember to use it, I failed to set them up. I didn't use them in our games, but then afterwards that I saw them, I was like, oh, it's supposed to go next to your board, and then it has all these arrows to remind you of what your scoring goals are during the game rather than just trying to remember it at the end.
Yeah.
So
like this row is 1 point. This row is 3 points.
Yes.
This row is 6 points.
And then all the other ways that you score points. So very smart. Smarter if you are using them too.
Yes.
The box insert is good. The dice tray is kind of unnecessary, but I think it's pretty cool.
It is the coolest thing.
It is really cool, but it's not necessary. I mean, you just take the dice out of it and drop them in a bag and it's all mixed up. So, but it's cool.
Yeah.
The expansion components don't fit perfectly, but again, it's probably one of those things that was made for just the base game components and then a little room was left for the expansion bits.
I don't know. Some of the things do seem like they're cut for it.
But then other stuff you're
Not
like,
so
I
much.
guess I have to awkwardly put this here. So
Yeah.
I don't know. So overall graphic design is pretty good. The cards have clear font, and most of the game is open information, except like your hand of cards is supposed to be kept secret.
Yes, and representation.
Yeah, I am stoked. This game is about being a gamer, which really speaks to gamers playing this game. So it's just really nice to see yourself and see your friends represented across the cards, because there's a large diversity of people who play games. So there's young and there's old, and there's different ethnicities and races and cultures. So I love that. It was really nice to see that. Only 16 cards, so they can't like dig real deep, but for what they chose, I think it's fantastic.
Yes.
Okay, conclusion.
For 2 players.
It's okay.
Yeah, agreed. It's not the strongest game. I think you actually get a little bit of more dynamic play when people are forced to use the Shelf of Shame.
Yeah.
In our games, we always found that, well, because of how someone played, one person always just avoided Shelf of Shame and they won.
Yeah.
And
The negative points you get from it is just, it's enough to tip the balance in a 2-player game.
yeah. But it kind of needs to be there to add the spice, and I think you see that when you get to higher player counts.
Agreed.
Accessibility.
Mostly, yes. The issues are quite minor. There's very little that has to be kept secret, and even that can be worked around.
Yeah, I was just upset with the deluxe version with one of the modules that we couldn't play with.
Yeah, secret goals.
Yeah, that was the only one that I was like, eh. But then again, I don't think it would have added too much to my experience.
Personally don't like secret goals, but it would have, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. And Sarah.
Yes.
Does this game inspire you to organize your shelves?
No, but then again, it's one of those things that I dread doing because we need to, but
So you'd rather just play a game about it?
I'd rather just play a game about it.
Yes, and why would you sort and organize with just one when you can be rolling with 2? If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can reach out to us on the various social media platforms at
Rolling with 2, that's TWO. We're on Blue Sky, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Discord, we have a channel on Tabletop Express. Check the show notes for the invite link.
If you have time, check out the other content Nanaman has found for you, because remember, he's rolling with you.